Well, the UN has warned that oceans face a severe threat from global warming, pollution, acidification, and other dangers that are caused by human activity. And though the seas cover about 70% of the Earth's surface and provide food and livelihood for billions of people, there's still no comprehensive legal framework regulating the treatment of the high seas. Now, that's one of the goals of the 5-day UN Oceans Conference that starts this Monday in Lisbon. For more, we'll cross now to our environment editor, Valerie DeKimp, who joins me now in the studio. Hi, Valerie.
Hi, Erin.
So the UN is hoping that this gathering will boost efforts then to finalize an international treaty to protect the oceans. Can this conference, do you think, move the needle on this issue?
Well, this conference had been postponed for 2 consecutive years, and now it is meant to set a clear path forward for the protection of the oceans. About 120 countries will be represented in Lisbon. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres will be attending, U.S. climate envoy John Kerry, but also French President Emmanuel Macron. Don't expect, though, this conference to be a place for negotiations like COPs, the UN annual climate summits, for example. You mentioned the Treaty of the High Seas, an agreement that looks at how the international community can govern maritime activities. Well, this will top the agenda in Lisbon, but don't expect to see negotiations. Don't expect world leaders to hammer out a deal when it comes to that treaty. There have been negotiations for the past 10 years, and it's not expected to end now in Lisbon. We can expect, though, a declaration signed by countries, but no binding agreement. And many, though, have been advocating for that treaty for years. As you mentioned, there's no legal framework that governs the activities that we carry out at sea. And so that's going to be the objective now. Conservationists say that it's like a vast, unregulated area, even though it covers 70% of the world's surface. Just a tiny fraction of our oceans are under protection, less than 10%. And that is why a coalition of 100 countries have pledged to protect at least 30% of the world's oceans by 2030. And that's going to be also a main talking point in Lisbon.
All right, Valerie. So at the Environment Desk here at France 24, then you have been looking at how the protection of marine areas is being enforced, especially when it comes to fishing techniques like bottom trawling. What did you find out in your reporting?
Right. So we traveled to Spain, which has one of the largest networks of marine protected areas. It's also home to the biggest fishing industry in Europe, the largest fleet of bottom trawling vessels, which the EU Commission, by the way, has described as one of the most damaging activities on the seabed. Why? Well, essentially, you need to think of vessels that rake the seabed. They drag heavy nets across the ocean floor to capture fish, but they also destroy everything in their way, coral reefs, seagrass beds, destroying entire ecosystems. And we know if you buy fish, if you eat fish, there's a high chance that actually it comes from a bottom trawler. About 32% of Europe's fish are caught by these industrial vessels. And what we found in our reporting is that these fishing techniques, bottom trawling, they're rampant in marine protected areas, in areas that are supposed to be protected. So we joined an expedition by an NGO called Oceana, and they found with underwater robots, with professional divers, they were able to document and prove that bottom trawlers were actually operating in these areas.
And you would think that something like this would be illegal, especially in banned protected areas, given all the damage that you described there.
Yeah, well, that's what's so concerning is that it's not illegal. They're not doing anything illegal. You can see there are the traces left behind by these bottom trawlers. And so this is what conservationists call paper parks. So they are areas protected on paper. In theory, they are supposed to be protected, but nothing happens. There's no oversight. There are no rules that govern what happens in these areas. And so damaging activities like bottom trawling are allowed to go on in these areas. And it's not just about biodiversity. There have been recent studies as well showing how these vessels, as they rake the seabed, they also release CO2 into the atmosphere, as we know that Oceans are carbon sinks. They capture and store carbon dioxide. Bottom trawling is only banned in 1% of European waters. Conservationists want to see it banned in all marine protected areas, of course, but they have recently lost that battle. They failed to secure an EU ban on bottom trawling in marine protected areas. So it's definitely become a hot potato in Brussels and possibly in Lisbon as well.
All right, we'll see if anything will come on that, Valerie, then at this Ocean Summit. Thank you very much, Valerie.
Thank you, Erin.